Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney worldwide right now with Ed Morse, definitive at Citigroup for years. They threw him on. Jane called him up. He went down to his office and said, Ed, see ya. Well, that's not quite what happened. He is iconic in oil and, of course, with a geopolitical study to it, his work with the Council on Foreign Relations. And, I'm like, okay, he can't retire. Where's he going to land?
Yeah.
And what's so cool about Hartree
Anywhere he wants,
is this is Amarada Hess from 1,000,000 years ago. And then Oak Tree Management took out Amarada's interest. So there's a heritage here of global oil along with the intellectual acuity of Oak Tree. And they've picked up Ed Morse because he was looking for a job. We're honored that Dr. Morse joins us this morning. Ed Morse, congratulations on this new effort. I'm glad to see you've slowed down to a 60-hour week. Ed, where's the marginal geopolitical interest right now? Which region, which country, which part of Brent crude is the most interest to Edward Morse?
Well, I think it really is the Middle East, and it's the Middle East for obvious reasons, not just because of what's happening in Israel, but the aftermath of all of that and struggles internally and externally involving Iran and Iraq. And of course, we've got Saudi Arabia, which is, along with Russia, leading the charge with OPEC Plus. So if you look at the politics of managing markets and the risks to the management of markets, the Middle East is a main focus. But, honestly, if you're trading in the Western Hemisphere and you're trading around Houston, and you look at a new Mexican refinery that's likely to open, the sweet-sour relationship on the U.S. Gulf Coast is also changing. So it depends on where you are. Yeah. But globally, it's really the Middle East.
I was talking to Jane, and I said, why'd you let him go? I mean, he had the call of the pandemic. Everybody else, Paul, was looking for $120 barrel oil. And Morse is up on the soapbox screaming, no, you're wrong. We're going down to 60 or 70, whatever it was. A massive call as well. Do you see Ed pushing against that? A nascent global demand that gets us to this Brent crude 90 or higher?
Well, I don't think it's the demand side, Tom. I think it's really the supply side. I think it's a combination of factors on the supply side. That combination of factors is a restraint that major producers are having and putting crude oil into the market. And the distortions in the market that need to be worked out, and they will be worked out, that come from the blockages of the Suez Canal and leading, Sumed pipeline is the only way to really get sustainable flows into the Med and out of the Med from the Middle East and to the Middle East. So we're going to have, as we did with Russia, Ukraine, a working out of freight rates, a working out of that distortion, weighing on prices eventually. And what we don't really know is what the response is going to be on the demand side with respect to buying oil from the Middle East and elsewhere, particularly in China. We've got a country that has shifted its gears as a major importer, shifting its gears in terms of deciding for geopolitical reasons. It's going to be building a massive inventory. It's got, we reckon, roughly another 500 million barrels of storage capacity can be filled. All of storage in China is strategic. And you get to high prices, China is not only not going to be importing more than they consume, they're going to be exporting. That's the pattern that we've learned to anticipate, and we should learn to anticipate it as oil reaches $90, which looks like an almost certainty in the next couple of months.
Ed, one of the things that is relatively new in the global oil space is the fact that the U.S. has gone from being a net importer to a net exporter. Why don't our friends down in, Texas and Oklahoma just start fracking some more oil?
Well, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. You have several new incentives to frack more. One of them is where the price is, where the forward curves are, and where you can make money if you're a publicly traded company by shifting to rapid response petroleum production. And then there's, on top of that, the technological advances that are being made. There are lots of talks on your shows and others about the revolutionary impacts of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is also working its way into the oil patch. And that artificial intelligence is bringing up productivity levels in terms of how you manage fracking crews, how you manage frack production or frac utilization. And I think we're going to see a response to that. We had basically a worldwide webinar from S&P earlier in a few days ago, in which they said, their deck increase in U.S. production of 800,000 barrels a day may have to be revised upward because of the high prices that we're now seeing.
So how about OPEC Plus? What is the role of OPEC Plus now in the global marketplace?
Well, OPEC Plus is a response to the failure of OPEC. OPEC, and I have written about this ad nauseum, always wrong, that we're seeing the end of OPEC, but the survival of OPEC depended upon bringing in Russia and Central Asian countries and other non-OPEC members. So they've got a very big hold on the market, and their aim is to maximize revenues and not to maximize them too much, where they get a drop in oil demand. So that's its role, and they're going to stall as long as they can to see where prices are going before lifting the thing. We will see whether they lift it in June.
Ed, I got two minutes left. Do you drive an electric car? Do you drive an electric car or a hybrid?
I drive a Tesla.
You drive a Tesla. See, I knew that.
There you go.
Ed Morse on electric cars. Is the bloom off the rose, or do you think there's an immediate sustainability? This, say, President Biden would want an immediate sustainability. I see it in the United Kingdom. I see it in Europe. Does Ed Morse think they're here to stay, or is it one-off and we go back to the internal combustion engine?
I don't think we're going to see a rush back to internal combustion engines. We may see a rush into hybrid vehicles. We're certainly seeing public policy in the city that we live in or work in is one where we're seeing delivery vans based on fossil fuels and buses based purely on fossil fuels being eliminated. And hybrid vehicles are certainly one way to go. And on electric, it depends on which country you're in. China certainly is seeing an end to gasoline demand because of their EV policy. The U.S. isn't, because we're not short distance drivers, we're long distance drivers, and drivers are awaiting technological change to see a longer lasting battery in terms of miles driven. But I can tell you, it is the most fun car I've ever driven. Even better than the MGs I used to drive.
And, there you go.
Yeah,
and George, I can just see him in the MGTD.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one with the wooden slats in the bottom. My father wouldn't let me buy it. Ed Morse's father let me buy one. He did better than I did. Ed Morse, wonderful to speak to you. Congratulations on this important position at Hartree. Mr. Morse, on our marginal barrel of oil.